Hey everyone, welcome back to the Zone Media Network. I'm Griffin, your host, and we've got a major update coming out of Canada today. Ottawa has just announced a significant move, a boycott of U.S. food imports. This decision comes at a time when Canadian families are already facing growing challenges related to food insecurity, with food banks across the country experiencing record-breaking demand. Meanwhile, in Washington, U.S. officials are dismissing the boycott, calling it a political gesture aimed at making a statement. One they say will hurt Canadians far more than Americans. With minimal impact on the U.S. economy as a whole. I end this segment. I'll be breaking down the situation, analyzing the key details, and exposing what critics are calling major missteps in Ottawa's strategy. I'll also explain why this boycott may already be having unintended and negative consequences.
The move by Orillia Council to declare a household food insecurity emergency in the city is designed to bring more attention to an issue that continues to grow by the month.
We are able to appeal to the federal and the provincial governments to say that this is a real problem here. And it also guides the decisions that council makes when it comes to income and when it comes to food access.
At the end of the day, advocates say there are too many people struggling to even eat. Staff at the Sharing Place Food Bank in Orillia say, like many food banks across the country, their numbers are skyrocketing and many new users are unemployed with young children.
Essentially, we're dealing with a rate of food insecurity that we've never seen before.
Chris Peacock with the Sharing Place says 10 years ago, it was dealing with about 14% of the city's population who were dealing with food insecurity. It's now closer to 31%, well above the provincial average.
We are in dire situation, and things are only going to get worse unless we solve the problems that are ahead of us.
Peacock reminds people food insecurity is not a food issue, but more of an income problem. He points to the 50% of his clients that are employed full-time. Just over 40% are from single-parent households. The city is currently developing a poverty reduction strategy and have started to put forward recommendations. The Simcoe-Muskoka District Health Unit prepared the report for council to review on the emergency declaration this week.
We really need to look at systemic changes, and if we don't start doing that, the issue is not going to get better, right? If charity, we've learned, is not the answer. I mean, it's not a problem of not having enough people that will donate food or enough food banks. What the issue is that people really want to have the income so that they can afford what they need for themselves.
The local food bank says its record-setting numbers of people in need are showing no signs of slowing down. And issues like affordable housing must be dealt with in order to help those in need the most. Rob Cooper, CTV News, Orillia.
The situation is clear. In the city of Orillia, local officials have taken an unexpected step. Council members declared a household food and security emergency, stating the crisis had reached a critical level. Staff at the Sharing Place Food Bank, one of the busiest in the area, report demand like nothing they've ever encountered before. 10 years ago, about 14% of the population required assistance. Today, that figure has surged to over 31%. This is well above the provincial average. What surprises even longtime advocates is that many of those seeking help are not unemployed. They hold full-time jobs, often supporting children, yet still struggle to cover basic needs. This is a startling reality. Nearly half of the food bank's clients fall into this group. Another 40% come from single-parent families where a single income just isn't enough. This highlights that food insecurity isn't caused by a lack of donations. It's a reflection of an income crisis, a rising cost of living, and a government that hasn't taken sufficient action. Chris Peacock, the food bank's manager, described it as an unstoppable wave. 10 years ago, 14% of the community relying on them felt like a crisis. Now it's over 30% and growing. He emphasized that more than half of their clients work full-time, yet still need external support to afford groceries. For him, the issue isn't about food alone. It's about income, affordability, and political leaders failing to address the root causes. Zooming out, the story is the same across Canada, from small towns to large cities. Food bank shelves are emptying faster than ever. Inflation has pushed ordinary families to the brink, with just one grocery bill away from financial hardship. Meanwhile, Ottawa has announced a boycott on U.S. food imports, intending to address food sovereignty. However, this move has sparked concern because Canada relies heavily on American imports. The sound of cash registers has become an anxiety trigger, reminding everyone of rising costs. It's a challenging situation with little hope on the horizon. Many Canadians are even considering leaving the country due to high taxes, inadequate services, and other frustrations. A recent RBC poll found 59% of British Columbians feel financially stuck because of rising costs, higher than the national average. Even though inflation has dropped to the Bank of Canada's 2% target, many feel their incomes aren't keeping up with expenses. Nearly a third of British Columbians say their finances are in constant turmoil. Over the past decade, the quality of life has declined noticeably. Many feel stressed and overwhelmed by the daily struggle to make ends meet. The survey also revealed that 54% of British Columbians spend all their income on essentials, and 57% doubt they will ever improve their financial situation. Living paycheck to paycheck is a harsh reality, leaving many constantly worried. Upcoming tariffs from the United States threaten to make things even more difficult. Despite these challenges, experts like Bannon recommend ways to manage debt and expenses effectively. Just as people consult medical professionals for health concerns, seeking financial advice should be normalized. Asking for help is nothing to be ashamed of. This is the current reality. Following the emergency declaration, grocers warned of price increases, distributors reported shipment delays, and consumers noticed empty shelves. Produce that typically comes from California or the Midwest was missing in some stores. Families already budgeting every cent now face additional price shocks, and for those relying on food banks, the pressure is intensifying. To get worse. Farmers also sounded that there is growing concern about Canada's agriculture sector. While it produces key staples like dairy, wheat, and canola, it does not currently have the capacity to instantly replace all imports from the United States. Canada's agricultural sector is strong, but it cannot simply fill the gaps left by American products overnight. Building reliable domestic supply chains takes years, not weeks, and requires significant investment and commitment. Without the necessary infrastructure and political will, boycotting imports isn't just impractical, it's potentially damaging. The backlash has been intense. Provincial leaders are criticizing the federal government for overlooking the needs of everyday Canadians. Food industry experts warn that ongoing tensions could lead to layoffs and business closures. Many citizens, already struggling to afford groceries, are questioning why their leaders would intentionally restrict access to affordable food. Rather than appearing as a defense of national sovereignty, the boycott is coming off as a self-inflicted wound, with Ottawa scrambling to justify its decision. Across the border, U.S. officials have responded with little concern. They highlight that American farmers have many other buyers worldwide, and while Canada attempts to make a statement, the impact on the U.S. is minimal. This leaves Ottawa appearing to have little leverage in the dispute. Government officials in Canada try to maintain optimism, discussing long-term goals of strengthening local supply chains. While these plans are positive, they are not immediate solutions. Amid rising grocery prices, families aren't interested in speeches. They want practical answers. They wonder how they will afford essentials like bread, milk, vegetables, and meat without depleting their savings. The frustration is widespread and growing, casting a negative shadow over the country's image. Despite the challenges, the boycott continues. In the U.S., officials have dismissed the boycott as largely symbolic and potentially self-harming. One trade advisor remarked that America has more buyers than sellers and can easily redirect food exports elsewhere. Another mocked Canada's move, suggesting it was Canadians who would suffer first. This highlights the significant imbalance in the Canada-U.S. relationship. Canada relies on American markets far more than the reverse. The political fallout in Canada has been swift. Provincial leaders accuse the federal government of gambling with people's well-being. In Alberta and Saskatchewan, officials say Ottawa is politicizing basic necessities. In Ontario, food banks already stretched thin are now expected to support even more families in need. Even small-town mayors warn that the boycott will increase poverty rather than alleviate it. Canadians are feeling the impact immediately. Social Me.
But while energy costs have dropped, other expenses have spiked.
Restaurant meals, home rents, a large increase month over month in travel tour prices.
And just when it seemed like food inflation was under control, price pressures at grocery stores are heating up.
Bread has gone up like way up in prices, like meat, chicken.
I never used to care about budgeting food, but now it's like, yeah, it's essential.
Or if you see a sale, you kind of stock up and sort of hope that it lasts and is shelf stable.
Fresh vegetables cost nearly 4% more. Tea and coffee rose 13%. The price of fresh and frozen beef jumped about 16%.
A weaker Canadian dollar in April, could have been part of that. You also did have some tariffs imposed on fresh fruits and vegetables from the United States.
For beef prices, the story is slightly different. Droughts in North America have reduced cattle herds, leading to smaller supplies. A fact that's not only increasing prices at the dinner table, but at restaurant tables too.
Our cost of goods in general, not just for beef, but for paper products, for oils and everything, they continue to rise.
David Neinstein says meat is the main attraction at his Toronto smokehouse. He says his costs have spiked 30% over the past 5 years. Like many other small business owners, he's unable to swallow those rising prices.
We've had to transfer that cost over to the consumer. We just can't afford, or we take it off the menu because we can't afford to sell it at a reasonable rate.
This inflation data is the latest complication for the Bank of Canada, which already has to consider a recent spike in unemployment, Heather, as well as the ongoing trade war.
You catch that? For families already struggling, the timing couldn't be worse. Inflation has already drained household budgets. Rent increases are squeezing city residents, and wages aren't keeping pace with the rising cost of living. Now add a boycott that restricts supply and pushes food prices even higher. Who thought this was a good idea? The situation feels overwhelming. Parents are reporting having to cut back on their own meals just to ensure their children have enough to eat. Food banks, already operating at full capacity, have been forced to ration portions and turn away families who have never asked for help before. These warnings are being heard across the country. In Toronto, food banks have been breaking records for demand 3 months running. In Vancouver, shelters and community kitchens report wait times stretching down entire city blocks. Even smaller towns served by a single food pantry are running out of supplies well before the month ends. Instead of strengthening Canadians, Ottawa's boycott is accelerating the crisis, and it's happening right at home. Meanwhile, the political fallout is growing fast. Opposition parties are capitalizing on the situation, accusing the government of reckless decision-making. Editorial boards question whether Ottawa is out of touch with everyday realities. Several provincial leaders are hinting that if the federal government doesn't reverse course soon, they may take matters into their own hands to secure food access. The image of a united Canada standing firm against Washington has quickly crumbled, replaced by a patchwork of frustrated provinces and angry citizens. Meanwhile, in Washington, the response borders on indifference. American farmers remain calm because they have plenty of buyers in other markets. Countries in Asia, Europe, and Latin America quickly stepped up to fill the void created by Canada's Boycott U.S. producers. Ottawa's move is little more than a temporary disruption, a reshuffling of customers. The real losers, they say, are Canadian families who will face higher prices and reduced options. The government tries to frame the boycott as a patriotic stand, but stepping back from the day-to-day chaos reveals a bigger picture. This isn't just about groceries. It's about sovereignty, trade, and the complex relationship between Ottawa and Washington. For decades, Canada has relied on the U.S. not just as a neighbor, but as its largest trading partner for energy, manufacturing, and food. That reliance has been a double-edged sword, offering stability but leaving Canada vulnerable whenever political tensions arise. By launching this boycott, Ottawa aimed to demonstrate strength. The message: Canada can stand on its own 2 feet without American food. But the gamble has backfired almost immediately. The numbers don't add up. Food security cannot be established overnight. It requires years of planning, investment in domestic agriculture, and supply chains robust enough to absorb the shock.
Researchers predict grocery prices are expected to rise between 3 and 5%, with staples like meat and vegetables seeing the biggest price jumps.
Climate change circumstances like droughts and all is going to affect the supplies available. And in addition, we've got all these geopolitical issues going on, whether it's the war in Ukraine or whether it's Trump proposing at least to put on high tariffs.
He says beef, for example, has already gone up at least 10% in stores, and for certain cuts, that hike is even larger.
Everything's too expensive, and rent's going up, and everything else too. So it's not sustainable. I don't know how people can do it. You know, I live on my own and I can barely deal with it. I can't imagine what a family has to deal with.
Don't know what we're gonna do. I have no idea what people are gonna do to try and live and pay rent and eat. It's a lot of choices to have to compromise.
Everyone has to eat, everyone has to put some food on their plate, and there needs to be some strict measures for affordable groceries.
You see, this is a major miscalculation, turning the boycott from a symbolic gesture into a serious liability and crisis. Instead of looking like leaders with a plan, Ottawa is coming across as disconnected and out of touch. Rather than calming fears around inflation and food security, they're actually making them worse. Instead of gaining leverage over Washington, they've given American officials proof that Canada is weaker, less prepared, and heavily dependent. This issue raises bigger questions that go beyond food. Ottawa seems willing to gamble with basic necessities for the sake of political posturing. What happens when the stakes involve energy exports, technology partnerships, or defense cooperation? These areas tie Canada even more closely to the U.S. and carry greater risks that if the government miscalculates again and extends this kind of approach to other sectors, the boycott offers a troubling preview of a dangerous future. One where political showmanship distracts from real economic problems, leaving ordinary families to bear the burden. This isn't just about food. It's a warning about what happens when politics collide with survival. In the end, Ottawa wanted to send a message of strength. Instead, it sent a glaring message of weakness and poor judgment. The promise was that Canadians would be protected and their food supply secure, that Canada would stand firm against Washington. What actually happened? Higher prices, empty shelves, families scrambling for support, and consequences that will linger for months, if not years. Food banks are already warning about sustained demand surges. Provinces are questioning if they can trust the federal government to prioritize survival over politics. Meanwhile, south of the border, American officials have moved on, treating Canada's boycott as a minor disruption, a headline that hurts Canadians more than Americans. This story matters because when a government is willing to gamble with something as essential as food, it's not just a policy failure. It's a crisis of care for its own citizens. It's a crisis of priorities. Canadians aren't looking for symbolic fights. They want leadership that makes life affordable, stable, and secure. And here's the bigger question. If Ottawa is willing to risk this much on food, what happens when the stakes are even higher? When the conflict is over energy, trade routes, or national security, if the fallout from this boycott is any indication, the next confrontation could be even more costly. So, as this crisis unfolds, one thing is clear. What was meant to be a display of independence and strength has instead become a glaring cautionary tale. It's a boycott that backfired instantly, exposing just how fragile Canada's position really is. And for millions of families, the cost of that mistake is felt every single day at the dinner table. That's all from us here at the Zone Media Network. I'm Griffin, your host. Be sure to check out American Zone for the latest U.S. news. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care, and I'll see you next time.